Hey, what's going on everyone? Vasco here and welcome to the channel. So today we are going to talk about Formula 1 engine penalties. Let's go! So while watching the first few races, a lot of people might have been focused on the Verstappen versus Hamilton and Mercedes versus Red Bull battle that's going on in the front. But I've actually been digging a bit deeper and I've actually been more focused on the Mercedes versus Honda battle that's going on in the background. And I think that this might be a real problem because if you look at the power unit element allocation for this year, you can already see a worrying trend for Honda, and we'll explore it in a bit. But first, let me explain to you how this allocation works. So, in a given season, you have a certain allocation of power unit elements. So this is your internal combustion engine, your batteries, your electronics, your MGU-H, your MGU-K, etc. And if you exceed this allocation, you get penalties on the grid. So for most components, the allowed number is 3 during the season. So you get 3 MGU-Hs, 3 MGU-Ks, 3 internal combustion engines, for example. And if you exceed those 3, you get a 10-place grid penalty for the first infraction and then a 5-place grid penalty for every subsequent part. So imagine you have 3 internal combustion engines. When you have to use your fourth, then you get a 10-place grid penalty, but you have to use your fifth, you only get a 5-place grid penalty. But even a 5-place grid penalty is enough to ruin your weekend. And if you are using engines that are outside of your allocation, you probably had a DNF on the past race because they always try to keep the engines alive. And even when an engine is at the end of its life, they can do some maintenance to it in order to keep it going. So if you are exceeding that allocation, you probably had a DNF. It's also worth mentioning that if a certain driver has already used all 3 components and the third one fails, they can go back to the first 2 and use a worn component and not get a grid penalty as a result of that. So you only get a penalty once you exceed the number of elements that's allowed. Now, this is where it begins to get a little bit complicated for Honda, and to explain this better, let's go to the computer. So in front of me, you can see an Excel sheet with the number of power unit components that have been used up to and including the 2021 Spanish Grand Prix. So this doesn't include any modifications that may have been made prior to the Monaco weekend because those haven't been revealed yet. And here you can see the number of drivers, so every single driver, the team that they drive for, the engine manufacturer that they drive with, and the number of each power unit element that they have driven. Okay, so if you look for instance at Lewis Hamilton, you can see that in his Mercedes he has used 1 internal combustion engine, 1 turbocharger, 1 MGU-H and MGU-K, 1 electronic store, so this is the battery, 1 set of control electronics, and this I honestly don't know what it is. And one of the XE, which stands for exhaust system. So you can see that Mercedes is doing well because we have a 23 race season. So if you have 3 elements, you want every component to last around 7 to 8 races. You would be good. So Mercedes is on the right track record. So you can see that Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas are on the right track record. And if you see like McLaren and Aston Martin, every single one of their drivers also on 1 and Williams on 1 also of everything. So everything seems to be going well for the Mercedes power team. Now let's look at the Ferrari power teams. So you can see that when it comes to Charles and Carlos, that they mostly are good, but each of them has already used 1 extra exhaust system. So this is not worrying. They probably had some kind of an upgrade here, and that's probably why both of them have switched, or they have found an issue with the first unit in terms of reliability and had to fix it for the second one. So if you look at the other Ferrari power teams, again, we see that both Alfa Romeos have also upgraded their exhaust systems, and that Antonio Giovinazzi has already had to use another set of control electronics, and that Mick Schumacher, the most worrying Ferrari driver in terms of allocation, has already used the second energy store and the second control electronics. So in terms of who has a clean slate in terms of Ferrari power units, it's only Nikita Mazepin. He basically didn't race for the first race. But okay, so this is kind of an average look. So you can see that in terms of reliability, Mercedes is definitely better than Ferrari, but Ferrari is also in not too bad of a shape. Now let's look at Alpine. So Alpine is the only team to use the Renault power unit, and you can see rather worryingly that Fernando Alonso has already burned through his exhaust system allowed part. So why hasn't he had a penalty? So some of these components you're allowed to have only 2, some only 3, and some unlimited. So the exhaust system is one of the unlimited components, so you can switch exhaust systems every single race if you want to, but it gets expensive real quick, so most teams don't do it. But yeah, it's rather worrying that Alpine has already burned through 4, and even though this doesn't give any grid penalties, what this may indicate is that there's a reliability issue with Renault Power Unit exhaust system. So I just put in here right now, so you can use 3 internal combustion engines, 3 turbochargers, 3 MGU-Hs and MGU-Ks, 2 electronic storage and 2 control electronics. So you can see that drivers like Mick Schumacher already burned through his whole season's reservation of electronic storage and control electronics, and also drivers like Antonio Giovinazzi already burned through his all season supply of control electronics. We got all 3 engine suppliers out of the way. Let's go and focus on Honda. That's the one that's worrying me. So now you have seen a pretty good picture for every single team, but get away, Axel. So now let's look at Honda. So when you look at Yuki Tsunoda especially, you can see that he has already burned through or exceeded most of his season supply of almost everything. So he only has 1 internal combustion engine left, 1 turbocharger, 1 MGU-H, 1 MGU-K, -1 electronic storage, -1 combustion, -1 control electronics, and he already has used 3 exhaust systems. So this is very worrying because we are going into the 5th race of the season, and he basically has already burned through most of his supply for the whole season. And what this indicates to me is that Yuki is going to suffer grid penalties when you go to the latter stages of the season. So he may still use the first 2 engines alternatingly, but he already is wearing down that second engine, and this indicates to me that when you get to the end of the season, he may see a lot of grid penalties on Yuki Tsunoda's car. So keep that in mind, and in a few races, watch out for Yuki and his penalties. And when it comes to Pierre Gasly, okay, the situation is better in the main components. When it comes to the electronic store and the control electronics, he already has burned through all of his season supply of these components. So one bad weekend, one malfunction, he's going to the back of the grid or 10 places back, but he's on the AlphaTauri, so 10 places back probably means back of the grid and the weekend ruined. And when we go to the 2 main drivers, so the 2 Red Bull drivers, you can see that Max Verstappen still has a very good going of things, so he hasn't used any part except for the second set of exhaust system, but again, that doesn't incur in a penalty. But when it comes to Sergio Perez, you can see rather worryingly that he already has used all of the electricity store or the batteries and all of the control electronics. So this leaves absolutely no margin for error, and we may see Checo, who can play a really big role in the title battle, because you saw in the Spanish race that the fact that there was 1 Red Bull and 2 Mercedes in the pit window made it that Mercedes controlled the race. So if Sergio has a grid penalty and is in the back of the grid, that leaves Max alone to be hunted down by the Mercedes. So this is really important and can play out in a lot of ways. So you can see that 1 more battery or 1 more control electronics and Sergio is out of the running for 1 race, which can turn out to be crucial in the fight for the title. So you can see here that Honda has already used 45 total elements, Ferrari 49, Renault 16, and Mercedes 56. And this might seem like Mercedes and Ferrari are on the worst place, but not really, because you have to keep in mind that Honda has 2 teams, Ferrari has 3, Renault has only 1, and Mercedes is 4. So when we divide the number of elements by the number of team, we can see that Honda has on average 22.5 elements per team already used, whilst Ferrari has 16.3, Renault has 19, so only one team, so it's the same, and Mercedes has 14. So you can see right here that Mercedes has by far the better reliability and Honda is by far the worst. So this is of course an early season analysis, but this can really tell us how the rest of the season is going to play out. And more importantly, we can already see that probably Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, and especially Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly are going to have grid penalties, and especially when it comes to the two Red Bull drivers who have the worst engine in terms of reliability, it seems, they are competing against the two Mercedes drivers which have the best engine when it comes to reliability, and this bodes really badly for the title fight because Red Bull need every single advantage they can get. So this has been it for this video. Hope you learned something about the engines, and I hope I taught you a new way to analyze the season, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So let me know in the comments what you think about the new style of video, and let me know what you think about, and let me know how you think that on the season is going to pan out in terms of reliability. So this has been it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.